Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CEOs You Should Know. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Dave Donatelli, the CEO of Riverbed Technologies. Dave, thank you for joining us.
It's great to be with you today.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. So, I did a little deep diving on you, but I really would love for you to give your perspective on your journey to becoming a CEO. There's some really interesting companies you worked at before. Like, what did that journey look like?
Well, it's really interesting. I don't think it's something you can map out. It just kind of evolves. But I started at EMC as employee 129 right out of college. And there I had the opportunity to work all over the company. I did things like sales, marketing, engineering, manufacturing, supply chain, customer service, a little bit of everything to run a business. And from there, I went to Hewlett-Packard to run what is now called Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. And then from there, Oracle, and then on to being CEO of Riverbed.
Impressive. And you've been at Riverbed for a year now?
A little bit over a year, yes.
How did that year look like? How has the innovation come into play? How have you had to adapt your leadership style? What does that look and feel like for you?
Yeah, well, what happened was a company called Vector Management purchased Riverbed, and they wanted to bring in new leadership. That was me. So I came in, and what I liked about Riverbed had a great technology history, but also really needed to adjust with what was happening in the marketplace. The market's moving very rapidly to things like AI. And that's really what we've concentrated on the first year, is really getting great products out to our customers, which I'm very pleased to say we've done.
That's amazing. And as I was going through your story and your journey, I heard that you've helped launch one of the biggest releases in the last decade at Riverbed.
That's correct. So we did that back in May. And again, products really focus around two big issues that business people are concerned about. One is, the world's very complex from a technology perspective. So how can customers have fewer products that cover more of their problems? So we did that, and that's called a platform, meaning it just covers a lot of their space. And then secondarily, we've seen that people are really interested in AI. They need, how can automation help solve problems that they otherwise couldn't solve? And our launch really focused on those two things.
That's very cool. I feel like AI is really like leading the conversation. It's topical for everyone. How are you staying innovative in the technology industry and really putting your best foot forward?
Yeah, a lot of technology is really built on work you've done before. So Riverbed's got a proud history. It's been around more than 20 years, tons of patents, tons of R&D done for years. And because of that, we had really the fundamental building blocks you needed for good AI. So AI, I don't want to get too technical for the audience, but it's actually, when you talk about a high level, it's actually fairly basic, which is AI is really built on having really good data. If you have good, accurate data, you can have really good AI solutions. And where you don't have accurate data, and I think your users can Google some of the things they call hallucinations, you get these crazy answers. So what was neat about Riverbed is we've always had a lot of real data in our products. And so we could leverage that real data in order to make very accurate AI for our customers. And that's what we've done.
Very cool. Speaking of data,
Yes.
you guys recently released a global AI survey over 1,200 decision makers. What did that research uncover?
Yeah, I think I uncovered a lot of things. AI is a term, like you walk down the street, everybody says AI, right? So there's a lot of hype behind it. And what the survey said is some things you would expect and some things you wouldn't expect. What you would expect is 94% of CEOs said this is very, very important to them.
Wow.
And I think the reason why they say that really goes back to the dawn of the internet age. If you were around when the internet first became commercialized, some companies really flourished from it. Some companies went out of business because of it, and then new companies like a Google, if you will, or an Amazon emerged because of the internet really becoming commercial. AI is going to do the same thing, and these CEOs are smart enough to know that some existing companies will do better than ever. Some will be put out of business because they haven't kept up, and there'll be new companies you and I don't even know their names yet who will emerge to be big companies. So they're interested because they want to be in the lead there, and that's what they're doing. But speaking of the lead, that's where it gets kind of interesting. Is that in that survey, these are companies all over the world, large companies, large governments, more than 80% of them say they're better than the competition.
Wow.
Okay, not a math major, but you can only have a little bit more than 50% better than everybody else.
Bold statements.
Yeah, so everybody believes they're great, and less than 5% believe they're actually behind. So we've got a bit of a perception problem. And then the other thing that really came up with it is then you get to the reality of it all. And the reality is there's a lot of hype. In technology, we always talk about what's called the trough of disillusionment, which is after you spend a year hyping up, people get disillusioned because it's like, well, where are the products? What can I do?
Yeah.
And in that survey, about 37% of the people said they're ready actually to do something with this. But that means, a whole heck of a lot aren't, just the inverse of that, of course. And they feel it's, about 3 years away for them.
Hmm.
So we're seeing, real solutions, real things being done today, but it's still going to be a journey over the next 3 years to really get the whole industry working towards it.
Very interesting. I feel like it gave you a really in-depth perception and really helped you uncover some info that's going to help you propel forward.
Totally. We really believe in having what we call, real AI that works.
Hmm.
And meaning the practical piece. People don't want hype. They just want to, how can you help me?
Hmm.
And from surveys like that, that's really reinforces the message to us that that's what we need to do is do practical things that work for people and provide real results.
Very cool. I think the word tech right now is on the forefront of everybody's radar. I think for those people in their journeys and career journeys that are looking to get to the next level, they hear technology company, they're like, that's where I want to be because that's the wave of the future.
Right.
You have had such an impressive career. So many different big companies, big tech companies that you have worked for, so many incredible CEOs. What have you taken away from some of the people you've had the opportunity to work alongside and work under?
Oh, a ton of different things. So I've been fortunate. I've worked for 2 founders
Mm-hmm.
and 6 CEOs.
Wow.
Okay, so a lot of different people. I think a founder most people don't know about who I think really deserves more credit. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. Is
Mhm.
Dick Egan. So the E of EMC was Egan, and he incredibly brilliant guy. His idea for the company that's still around today, and what he really taught was the importance of again the basics. Know your customer,
Mm-hmm.
have great products, and do anything to make sure your customers are happy. He famously, when we were kids, kids meaning right out of college, he gave every customer his home phone number.
Wow.
Extension 1000 at our company, all he had to do is dial 1000 was his house.
Impressive.
And you could call anytime, day or night, if a customer had an issue or a customer had a problem, call him. He would make sure the customer was happy. And that's a big lesson that I really, kept with me as I went.
Mm-hmm.
Another person, Mike Ruckers, a very big mentor of mine. He's the one who gave me all those jobs I talked about earlier. And then I mentioned I want to be a general manager, so he really gave me the opportunity to manage all kinds of different things that I had no background in. I remember being called in, hey, you're going to run manufacturing, you need to build a manufacturing plant. And I'm like, sure.
Yeah. Let's figure this out.
I'm going to go
Yeah.
figure that out, pretty quickly because I know nothing about this. And that was really great. And then Mark Hurd, who was CEO of both HP and Oracle, just an unbelievable understanding of the numbers.
Mhm.
Mark Hurd loved to do what we call these quarterly business reviews. And I loved them because it was like going for the strongest test you're ever going to have in your life. Like
Mhm.
it was almost like you can give him 30 pages and he would start with, your number on page 28 at the bottom is wrong. And you're like, how did he find this? So
Yeah.
he really taught attention to detail that you've really got to know everything to be good. So it's been fascinating learning from them all.
No, that's very cool. And I feel like hearing that everyone had his cell phone number and he cared so much about the company and about the people.
Yeah.
That's true leadership. And that's someone
Absolutely.
who really believes in their
Committed.
brand. Yes.
Absolutely.
And then hearing from you that you just dive in, right? And being at the top and being in that CEO role, having worked in every aspect of the business, that so much better prepares you to lead an entire organization.
Without a doubt. I'm so fortunate that Mike Ruckers gave me that opportunity to
Mhm.
do that. Once I built the factory, I learned a lot about building factories and as an example. And what that does, it just gives you great empathy for the challenges each person in the organization has. And by understanding their jobs, it makes it easier to lead the whole group. And it gives you the fundamental confidence that you understand what's going on.
Yes.
And all those things are really helpful as you move forward.
Oh, I love hearing that. And I'm sure our listeners do as well, because that's something to aspire to, right? And that's something we want from our CEOs, but also for those preparing for that next step in their journey. How do you better serve the organization? It's learning all the ins and outs.
Exactly. And one thing I think it's interesting about it, where I said there's no straight path.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these jobs, when Mike would call me, I'd be like, I don't want to do that job.
Yeah.
My first management job was customer service, and we were in the middle of a big recall, which meant you're going to be up all night. People are going to be calling, big problems, and you're kind of like, gee, I went to college, so I wouldn't have to do something like
Yeah.
this. And that was my thought as a 24-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
when I did that job. And then later, I really realized the wisdom of doing that job, and that I learned the business from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
I understand how it works. I was able to fix a lot of problems. And, so I think the message to people is, look, might not necessarily go to the job you think you're going to go to,
Mm-hmm.
but as long as it's teaching you something and you're learning, it's worth it. And it really helps you do the next job and the next job, because all this learning builds on each other.
Very cool. I love that. And I feel like you hit the nail on the head. Like, in order to better understand what people are going through and how to fix issues, you go right to the base, right? Customer service. That's where you hear the real information and the real news and how you can fix problems in real time.
Exactly. I would say two things. I think from the career aspect, obviously I'm more in the later stage of my career than the early
Yes.
at this point, but I'm still learning every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people who have long, successful careers have that innate curiosity.
I agree.
I want to learn. I want to learn. I want to learn. I can get better no matter how long
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this. I can always get better. Those are the people I find who do the best. And then on the customer side, yes, I mean, what would take a lot of pride in is the products we've designed and built are literally you're using them today. You might not know it because
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of behind the scenes products, but the world functions on all these products. And there's a lot of pride in saying, "Hey, we helped enable this to happen." And the things again that people do, whether you're using your social media or whether you're calling someone on the phone, all start with the technologies that we built.
100%.
And there's a lot of fun to doing things that matter.
Yeah, definitely. And seeing such gratification from it. So tell me about your blank sheet of paper and how you use that approach in really working through problems and solutions and getting to the next step.
Well, I think with a blank sheet of paper, I think if you're coming to a new organization, I've had the pleasure of doing that. I mentioned all these different companies.
Mm-hmm.
What you really want to come up with first is just your vision and strategy. And I think vision sounds like a word. People are like, "Oh, what's your vision?"
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. But I really believe very simply, you have to determine. It sounds like common sense. It's easy to say. It's harder to do. What exactly are we trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
And then as a leader, your job is to make sure that everybody in the organization, this is the hard part, understands what it is we're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
and then understands their role in making that happen. I always like to say 95% of the people will do their very best to help you achieve what you want to achieve
Mm-hmm.
as a group, as an organization. The trick is getting that 95% to truly meaningfully understand what that means.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difficult part of management. And if you do that, you're going to have a very successful group. And then, the other part about a blank sheet is just, again, the fun is we design products. What we do is we make products, is drawing it on a whiteboard, saying this solves a customer problem, then going through the development process,
Mm-hmm.
building that product, bringing it out to customers, having them run that product, and then see the advantage they get from that or the benefit. And to me, that's wholly satisfying, bringing something to life and then seeing all these huge organizations really run their business on it.
Very cool. I'm going to ask you for some personal advice. So I feel like a lot of times in my role and going through what I do, we have these ideas and we have these incredible ideas and we're working on getting buy-in and communication. But it's the follow through and accountability that sometimes there's a struggle with, right? How do we keep it going? How do we keep the momentum going? And how do we make sure our teams are accountable towards what we're rolling out? How would you recommend having that accountability and that continued buy-in?
Yeah, I think first of all, everybody's got a different personality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're going to manage. Someone once told me, I think it's a funny line, right? You're not born a dog and die a cat. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of are who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and it's important first of all to understand what is your approach. My personal approach, and what I'm very comfortable with, I'm a very direct person. So if things are going well, I'm going to tell you it's going well. If things are
Mm-hmm.
going poorly, I'm going to look at you in the eye and say it's not going the way we thought it would go.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to marry that with your personality. Once you figure that out, I'm very much into very clear goals. Again, broadly shared so everybody knows where we're going. And then very clear reporting. This is where we're doing well. This is where we're falling behind. This is what we need to do to fix it. And for me, the reason why I use direct communication is for me personally, I think that's the best way to move people forward. Because people, I find, respect when they know they're being told the truth.
Yes.
They don't like sugarcoating. They don't like BS. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, here's what we need to do. And then you unleash the creativity in people because if they know there's a real problem, they can fix things. I'll give you one quick example.
Okay.
When I was at EMC, early on, we had fallen behind on a very important product. And we were missing a key feature. And we had what's called code freeze coming up. So it looked like impossible. We're never going to get this done. Now we're really going to be in trouble because be another year and a half before the next product came out. What are we going to do? And a person came up to me, because we were honest, and said, this is a real
Mm-hmm.
problem. This is bad. A person came up to me and named a D offer. And he just looked me in the eye and goes, I can do this. And it was basically a whole bunch of code, how to be written in a record amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, are you sure you can do this? Because no one else said they need to. He's like, I can do this. And it's one of these, as a manager, when you see somebody, he was committed.
Yes.
And I was like, what do you need? And he just needed a couple people and kind of to be left alone. And to his credit, he delivered it.
Wow.
and it worked perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, by him knowing this was such a big problem, it gave him the impetus to fix it. And then by having a sharp deadline, which the deadline was a deadline,
Mm-hmm.
he knew what his parameters were, and then he got it done.
Wow, impressive. And
So
you
that's
had
just
that
an
innate
example of that.
feeling and that experience from being in the role in management to know to trust him and trust he would get it done.
Correct. I'd also say, it all depends on organization. Software engineers, I always like to say, work the way I used to work in college, which is I never felt any paper, whatever the deadline was, I'm writing it the night before.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way I am.
High pressure.
Yeah. And,
Here we go.
And if they moved it a week out, I'm
Mhm.
still waiting 6 days because
Yep.
I'm going to write it the night before,
Mhm.
a week later. I'm not, just the way I was.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, software engineers, frankly, are kind of the same way, is they work best with deadlines.
Mhm.
And so if people know there's a structure and there's deadlines, they get stuff done.
Note to self, works well under pressure. Yeah. So with that, I know a lot of our listeners are probably looking for that advice, right? What advice would you give them on their career, on next steps, on growing? Like, what's the one piece of advice you've gotten in your career that you would feel would help someone else take it to the next level?
I'll give you a couple of what I call greatest hits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first thing
Give
is
them to me. Yeah.
if you want to move up in the career you're in, at the company you're in, easiest thing to do is find out what your manager is trying to get done
Mm-hmm.
and help them get that done really quickly.
Smart.
So easiest thing on earth, right? You'd be surprised how many people don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, greatest hits is remember you are a brand. And what I mean by a brand is your career gets summed up in a room that you're not in a soundbite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do you think about Steve? Overpromises, underdelivers.
Wow. Yep.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's no more complicated than that. What do you think about Carol? Always delivers, takes on the toughest problems. Good. You want to give Carol promotion. What do you think about this next person? A whole team hates him. Doesn't play well with others.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. I've been at some of the largest companies on earth, and that's really what it comes down to. So it's your brand,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to think about that. And who do you want to work with? You want to work with the people who are pleasant. You want to work with the
Yes.
people who deliver their deliverables,
Mm-hmm.
who are positive, and those people move up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it all really comes down to how you conduct yourself ultimately and what matters to you, frankly. For some people, careers are the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
For others, it's not. And it's okay if it's not. But just understand that.
No, I think that's such helpful advice. It's good to know that like your brand and who you are, it's so important and so important to make sure leadership knows that and knows who you are and the positive attributes that you're bringing to the table.
And it has to be a sincere brand.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at your brand right, it's got to be sincere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's good for both you and the company because you don't want to go try and be somebody you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be your genuine self, and you should be your genuine self. I hear, sometimes I see these self-help books where they talk about, well, try and pretend to be this, no, be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You are who you are, and you want to be happy. You should be happy working. But then with that, the hardest thing I see people struggle with all the time is, what should I do?
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, I'd like to have a career talk and advice. I say, great. What do you want to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it's like, well, what should I do? And it's like, look, I can't decide for you what makes you happy. I don't know what your goals are.
Mm-hmm.
And I find people really struggle with that element in that really the introspection. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy to figure out what matters most to you, what makes you happy, what do you really want to do in life?
Mm-hmm.
The best couple I ever saw do this, they sat down every Thanksgiving. I'm not suggesting you be this regimented,
Okay.
but every Thanksgiving they were writing out their 5-year goals
Mhm.
and this is what we're going to do. And this is our personal goals and our vacation goals and our work goal. I mean, they were really organized. Not suggesting you have to go that far, but the more you understand about what you like and what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
the more someone can help you get there.
That's true.
If you just go on open-ended with, I don't know, can't really help you.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the younger folks out there, what I'd say is probably the most important thing to pick is your industry. And the reason why that's so important is because once you start working, you gain experience. And when you gain experience in a particular industry, people value that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at my friends, the folks who try to change mid-career, that's tough because now you're going to go to a new industry where you have no experience. And typically that's going to be a step back, both in level and compensation, everything else. And the older you get, that gets more difficult because your life's more complicated. You have financial obligations. You might have kids.
Mm-hmm.
Harder to do. So really make sure you do your best pick an industry.
Hmm. That was amazing. Such helpful tips and such helpful advice. We appreciate that because that's going to go a long way. So, with that, what's next for Riverbed?
Well, as we talked about, innovation is really our key. Is
Hmm.
that back to Dick Egan, who I talked about earlier, right? It's the products. The
Hmm.
products are what drive tech companies. Ultimately, tech companies are driven by great technologies. Again, simple to say, harder to do.
Hmm.
And so we have a whole slew of new products coming out this year. We're very excited about. We just announced a new collaboration we're doing with Intel, which helps customers again in their Intel environments. So think your desktops, your laptops, everything that works on Intel chips, and all their peripherals. So you continue to see us have more products like that.
Very cool. Well, Dave Donatelli, we really appreciate your insight, your input, and everything you opened us up to today. It's been inspiring. And I know for our listeners, they love hearing the what's happening, the journey, the what's next, and really being given that bird's eye view into your career and journey to hopefully inspire theirs.
Thanks. Great to be with you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
That was an episode of CEOs You Should Know. Please tune in to see what's next. Thank you.